Good afternoon. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Tuesday, February 19, 2019 meeting. And we'll start with the introductions. I'm John Hutchings and the chair of the board. To my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner Ty Menser. To his right is La Bonita Bomar, the clerk of the board. And over here we have Ramiro Chavez, the county manager, and to his right is Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Elizabeth Petrich. And so with that, I'm going to ask Commissioner Edwards to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And I, in turn, am going to ask Ted May to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please, sir. To the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. May.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
I would so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for Tuesday, February 19, 2019. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Motion for approval of the board meeting minutes from February 5th.
And I would so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries as well. That takes us to proclamations now. Public Health and Social Services proclamation for American Heart Health Month. Is it Kurt or Shelley? Oh, both of you?
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Commissioners. I'm Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services.
Good afternoon, Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services.
And we are here together to ask you to proclaim February American Heart Health Month. Each year, heart disease and stroke are the leading causes of death in Thurston County, and this is a great public health concern for us. Each year, throughout the nation, people wear red on February 1st and throughout the month to raise awareness of this important issue. Kurt is going to talk to you a little bit about some ways that we can prevent these deaths from happening here in Thurston County.
Also wanted to talk a little bit about the signs and symptoms of a heart attack and how they impact both men and women a little bit differently. First of all, only approximately 54% of women know that heart disease is the #1 killer in this country. Women are more likely to experience a heart attack that does not occur in a typical fashion. Lightheadedness, extreme fatigue, fainting, or dizziness are some of the atypical signs of a heart attack. 9 out of 10 women that have atypical symptoms don't go to the hospital, and 65% of women who die suddenly from heart disease have no previous symptoms. For men, they usually have typical symptoms for a heart attack to include chest discomfort or pressure, pain in one or both arms, jaw pain, and shortness of breath. 50% of men who die suddenly of heart disease have no previous symptoms. So it is what we could call almost a silent killer out there. The approaches, 7 approaches to staying healthy. This is from the American Heart Association. Be active, keep a healthy weight, learn about cholesterol, and not just learn about it, but then do something about it. Don't smoke or use smokeless tobacco, eat a heart-healthy diet, keep blood pressure healthy, and learn about blood sugar and diabetes.
So in accordance with Initiative 1 in the Thurston County Strategic Plan, Improve Health Outcomes for All, we ask you to proclaim February as American Heart Health Month here in Thurston County.
Any questions or comments?
I don't think so.
Questions or comments before you read it?
No, I don't think so. I'm getting close to that demographic that better start paying attention, though, I can tell you.
Isn't wearing red one of the preventative things?
We have no statistics on that, but I believe that to be true.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kurt. All right.
Proclamation, American Heart Health Month. Whereas cardiovascular diseases are the nation's leading cause of death and costliest disease with direct and indirect costs in the United States, estimated to be $317 billion. And whereas about 800,000 people in the United States die each year from heart disease, stroke, and other cardiovascular diseases, a number equivalent to approximately 1 of every 3 deaths in America. And whereas 2,200 people in the U.S. die from cardiovascular disease each day, and about 92.1 million American adults are living with some form of cardiovascular disease or the after effects of stroke. And whereas heart disease and stroke are leading causes of death for Thurston County men and women, with an average of 599 county residents dying each year from some form of cardiovascular disease. And whereas the American Heart Association 2020 impact goal seeks to improve the cardiovascular disease health of all Americans by 20% while reducing deaths from cardiovascular diseases and stroke by 20% through research, population, and community level interventions, public health, and policy measures. And whereas about 80% of cardiovascular disease may be prevented through everyday healthy living, including being physically active, good nutrition, not smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, and controlling blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood glucose levels. And whereas the American Heart Association encourages residents to help save lives by taking CPR training and by calling 911 if symptoms occur. Whereas the American Heart Association is celebrating February 2019 as American Heart Month and promoting education and awareness by encouraging residents to learn the warning signs of heart attack and stroke. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Thurston County Commissioners hereby proclaim February as American Heart Health Month in Thurston County in recognition of the importance of the ongoing fight against heart health, and urges all residents to receive CPR training, recognize the critical importance of identifying symptoms, and adopt lifestyles that improve overall health, which will increase survival rates and save lives each year. Adopted this 19th day of February 2019. Signed by your Board of County Commissioners.
There you go. Yay. Now what we'd like to do, we'll come around and present you and get a photo with our PIO.
You wearing red.
Forgot to unclip.
Go.
Should I wear it on my...
Go to the front. Go to the front.
Should I have it?
Go to the front.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir.
No, mobile.
How come Shelley's running away?
She was fine standing next to me, I don't know.
Oh, there was socks.
Holy mackerel.
Center.
Okay.
Are you wearing red?
No, I haven't.
There we go.
Well, I got some red, I guess, huh? Thank you.
All right, that moves us now to the part of the agenda that is the opportunity for the public to address the board. And I'm going to read some rules for engagement or disengagement. Because this is a chance for the public to address the board. It's not a chance for us or an opportunity for us to respond and answer questions, debate, discuss. This is your opportunity to address us. So if we don't respond, it's not because we don't care. This is not the venue for that. And the county manager will respond with follow-up on specific items if need be. Speakers are limited to a total of 3 minutes to address the board. Meeting attendees cannot donate their speaking time to another person. The board reserves the right to restrict a person's opportunity to address the meeting for a good cause. Please silence your cell phones if you have not done so.
Is that for me?
No comments that are lewd or offensive to a reasonable person. Please be respectful. No outbursts of any kind that includes applause or disapproval. No comments that are commercial in nature, such as promotion for a for-profit business. No comments that are inflammatory, hateful, defamatory, or discriminatory. All materials that you may provide the county may be considered public record, subject to the public release upon request pursuant to the Public Records Act, Chapter 46.56 of the RCW. And if you have something, please deliver it or present it to the county manager. And remarks about pending land use permits or similar matters that could eventually come before the board on appeal, we won't talk about that either. At the end of your 3 minutes, you'll hear a tone that signifies the end of your time. If you're mid-sentence, we'll let you finish up your sentence, but then move on. And so what I will do is I have the list that people have signed up. And I don't know if there's any additional people that have signed up or not. I'll find out momentarily. I'll read the first name and then who's coming up after that, so you can be on ready, on the standby. First to come up is Joseph Brumbles, and followed by Scott Bannister. And I ask when you come up, just kind of give your where you live in the county, your name and where you live in the county for the record. We're ready to go. Mr. Brumbles? All right, thank you, sir. And then Scott Bannister is next.
All right, well, thank you guys for having us today. I'm Joseph Brumbles. I live over near Roy, and I ran in the last midterm election in the U.S. House, U.S. congressional race, District 10 against Denny Heck, and I made it to the general election, garnishing around 40% of the votes, or 104,000 votes. Currently, I'm running for lieutenant governor for the 2020 cycle, and I am here today to stand up for our Second Amendment rights, part of our Bill of Rights. The right that protects all other rights. So I believe Scott Bannister gave you guys a copy about 2 weeks ago of the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance. And so that being said, what I want to say is, kind of want to go back to a little reflection on where we were and where we are now. You know, I-1639 and a lot of these other bills that are being introduced, legislation is against our Second Amendment rights. So here goes. On April 19th, 1775, British soldiers approached colony members and demanded that they turn over their firearms. What happened next was a battle over liberty, named the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Some refer to this as a shot heard around the world. This started the Revolutionary War, which ended in us gaining our freedoms and us having our country of our own. We come from free men who would not be ruled. History is extremely important, and believe it or not, whatever the outcome of these attempts to violate our Second Amendment rights, that outcome will also echo throughout history. We still will not be ruled. The truth is that we would not have a country without firearms. During World War II, Japan did not invade our shores for the simple reason that we had a gun behind every blade of grass. Around that same time, high school kids had shooting clubs at school and gun racks in their trucks. It wasn't a concern then, but we made it into a concern now through agenda-driven propaganda and immoral societal changes, among other controllable things. As we travel through life, we as a people steer the outcome. We as people decide what will be written in our history books. We are steering into the wrong direction, into the direction of tyranny. We need that train to derail. We need to focus on the right things, not the wrong things. We need to focus on growing as a society, not taking huge steps backwards. We need to address the true problems, not to take away people's inalienable right to protect their life, their family members' lives, and their property. Gun control is not noble, it is just that, control, and it is tyrannical. The tyrants being the ones who want the control. Last but not least, let us remind our representatives, sheriffs, and judicial members that they took an oath to support and defend the U.S. Constitution. Is the Second Amendment not part of the U.S. Constitution? Not only that, but it is part of our Bill of Rights. As elected officials, do they know the difference? I sure hope so. They all took an oath of office, as you all did. I hope that they and you will uphold that oath. I also hope that common sense will prevail over all else, and that you will choose to stand on the side of liberty, not tyranny, the side of we the people. Stand with us here in Washington State. Stand up for yourselves and your families. Stand up for the Second Amendment. Our future certainly does depend on it. United we stand.
Thank you, Mr. Brumbles. Next, we have Scott Bannister, followed by Ronald Lopez. Oh, it's the county manager right there, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Council.
Hi.
Thank you for having us today. I'm Scott Bannister from Yelm, Washington, 15720 92nd Court. I was here 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, to present our Second Amendment preservation ordinance. I didn't know if you have gotten a chance to look it over. We were going to all the different counties. We've got 23 sheriffs, I believe, on board so far with what we're doing there with our Second Amendment, with the unconstitutional laws that our Attorney General and our Supreme Court have put on the ballot and was put through. Excuse me, I'm not very thoughtful today. I've been sick.
Fine, you're fine, sir.
I just wish that you would consider these, what we're doing here, and remember that you've taken an oath to the people that have elected you. Your oath is very important. We would like to keep our free country here. And it's not about myself or anybody in this room, really. It's about our grandkids and children, their futures. Because if we don't do something about their futures now, they won't have what we have today. I'm going to give them up. I'm not going to give up my time, but I'm going to let somebody else speak. Because
Great. Thank you very much, sir.
I've just given the city manager there the paperwork again, so if you'd like to see it again. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Ronald Lopez, followed by Mark Jensen.
Thank you. Just prepare my thing real quick. Busy work schedule, so I had to kind of
And Mr.
coordinate with some things
you're
out.
Mr.
But
Lopez? Mr. Lopez, can you state where you live?
yes,
Thank you.
my name is Ronald Arroyo Lopez. I live on 1330 Florida Loop, Lacey, Washington.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Again, my name is Ronald Arroyo Lopez. I am a member of the Washington State 3 Percenters, also a member of the Washington State Libertarian Party, a tax-paying citizen, and a military veteran serving over 20 years in the military, and while I was in the military, serving in 5 combat tours throughout Afghanistan and Iraq. So with that being said, I take the Constitution, our republic, very seriously, based on the fact that I've literally seen people die, giving up their life, paying the ultimate sacrifice, so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we do have and the freedoms that we have left here, from what I see as my personal opinion. I'm here because of my concerns of multiple gun control bills that are being voted on and the recent passing of Initiative 1639 that was supported by what I believe were billionaires and politicians using political tactics to appease their constituents. And I'm concerned because it appears that we are setting a standard that is okay to use initiatives to infringe and impair on constitutional rights, basically turning our rights into privileges. You know, I was looking at some of the statistics today, and according to the Secretary of State, one diagrams I've seen on Initiative 1639, it did pass with 59.35%, with 40.65% of the people who voted no. However, approximately 25 out of the 39 counties in Washington State were listed as voting no against the county. I remember in history class, one of my teachers was telling me about the Electoral College and why our founding fathers established that form, because with mob rule could be very dangerous. You know, what the Electoral College does, it protects the minority voice. And even though there might be a small percentage of people who own guns and want to exercise that right, it's not fair for the majority of those to infringe upon those rights, instilling gun control laws that I can sit here and quote statistics that I grew up in places like Baltimore, New York, up on the East Coast, and I've seen firsthand with all these gun control laws that it doesn't really help a lot because we're not focused on the problem that are causing people to do these criminal acts. Going back to one of the founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton had once stated, "If we incline to too much democracy, we shall soon shoot into a monarchy." Currently, there are proposed bills and bans that are that have been stated classifying what an assault weapon is. Well, basically, my time is short, but what I will say is, just we all took an oath. I legally purchased some firearms, legally. They are in legal standing, and I just hope that one day I'm not considered a felon because all of a sudden certain firearms that I do possess are now classified as illegal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service as well, Ron.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have Mark Jensen, followed by Matt Marshall.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mark Jensen. I live at 132 Northwest Mountain View Drive in Yelm. I've lived here since 2012, but I've owned a home here since, I think, 1989, so quite some time. My first time speaking here in front of you. I rise in support of the ordinance for the Second Amendment preservation. I think it's essential that we move forward with this and show support that the first 10, what are called the amendments, are called unalienable rights, which means they're given by God, not to be altered by the governed or the government. I brought forward a little piece of paper here called the Declaration of Independence. Some of you may have read it. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by our Creator and certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So you're the part of the government, and we are the governed, derived from the just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish and to institute new government, laying its foundation and such principles in organizing its powers in such form as to then shall seem most likely to affect the safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will indicate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the form to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, and means a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guard for their future security. I think those are incredible words, and I think every day you come into your office, you need to think about them. You are here as elected officials, but you are representing the people, and your job is just as important as your oath, is to uphold the Constitution, to understand the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and of course the Declaration of Independence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have Matt Marshall, followed by Robert Burrell.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet all of you. So my name is Matt Marshall. I live in the Elm area. I also work in Olympia here, just down the street on Capitol Mall. I'm also the second legislative district vice chair for the Republican Party. So I'm here also about the Second Amendment ordinance that we're talking about. And some of my issues with the Second Amendment infringements that have been happening, a lot of them have to do with just my own privacy. So I'm going to focus on a little different thing than a lot of these other gentlemen have spoken about. So 1639 was recently approved into law. The first thing that happened with 1639 is it was put onto the ballot in a way that was pretty misleading to begin with. So we have a lot of issues with that. I personally was told that I was signing a no food, like no grocery tax ordinance. And when it was put in front of me and I read the back, it was actually 1639 that I was signing for. So things were brought in front of us in a misleading fashion. They did the same thing on ferries, on public transportation, multiple different places. Now, we also had it removed from the ballot back, I think it was August 17th last year. It was removed from the ballot, and then it was placed back onto the ballot. It was removed because there were so many changes in the law that it was found to be unconstitutional by our state constitution. Then it was placed back on by the Supreme Court. So, first off, it was removed, and it shouldn't have ever gone back onto our ballot. Most of us that signed it thinking that we were signing something very different than what we were signing. Now, they put some things in there that you have to sign now. Some of it is the age restrictions, and it makes it similar to our handgun laws that we have right now. Other things make us sign waivers. One of the waivers is for our own HIPAA privacy. So when I go buy a firearm now, if it's considered a semi-automatic assault rifle, according to this new law, one of the things that I have to sign is a waiver for my health and my privacy for all of my medical records. Now, that makes it so that it's no longer me and my physician that are concerned with what's going on with me. It makes it so that the state is now in charge of what makes me allowed to have a firearm. It opens my medical records to the state. Now, most of us want all of our health and privacy to be between us and our physician. And we want it to be with nobody else. And so 1639 has nothing defined as in what is and what is not allowed for mental health, for medical health, for anything else. And it opens it up as a Pandora's box, so to say. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Robert Burrell, and there's nobody else signed up. Will you go check, Brian, see if there's any other signatures? I'll open it up to anybody else that may want to address the commission.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Robert Burwell. I live in Ashford, Washington. That's Lewis County. So I'm here to support some of my friends here on this Thurston County initiative. And my thoughts on this whole thing is, bottom line, the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights are the supreme law of the land. Okay? We also have a state constitution, which augments the federal constitution. Both of these documents guarantee the right of the individual to keep and bear arms in defense of their self and of their property and of their state and their nation. Okay? I-1639, there's so many questions about how it was brought up, which Matt spoke about. The voters pamphlet was misleading, okay, because it says it restricts people under the age of 21 from purchasing an assault rifle. But what it didn't say in the voters pamphlet, which if you read the whole initiative, is that any rifle that is semi-automatic is now considered an assault rifle. That means the .22 rifle I had when I was 10 years old is now an assault rifle. About the only thing I'm going to assault with that is a squirrel. Okay? But what this legislation has done has opened the door to now when they ban assault rifles, that means they've already accepted the definition in 1639 of assault rifle. It's going to ban every single semi-automatic rifle there is. It's going to knock us back to the 1890s before we had any semi-automatic rifles at all. Now, that aside, one thing we have to remember is that, again, the Constitution is supreme law of the land. no laws can be made or enforced that violate the Constitution of the United States or the amendments, which means I-1639 and any of these other gun initiatives they're talking about are illegal laws, and they are not enforceable. Okay, no matter how much we want to, wish that, we can just pass whatever we want. We can't do that. It's illegal. So what we're asking for is not for you to disobey the law. We're asking you to follow the supreme law of the land and defend our individual rights. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And that exhausts the list. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak that has not signed up? We give you that opportunity now. Yes, come forward. I see a hand. Oh, there we go. And just state your name slowly so we can get it for the record, ma'am, and where you live.
Jodi Hildebrandt.
Oh, wait, no, at the mic. Thank you.
Jodi Hildebrandt.
Uh-huh.
I live in Lacey, Washington.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm a fifth generation Washingtonian. My great-great-grandfather led wagon trains from Arizona up to this area of Washington, not just Thurston County, but Grays Harbor, before Washington actually became a state, following the logging that had started booming in the late 1870s and 1880s. So this really, truly is my family's home. And since then, there's been countless changes in what is acceptable, what is considered civilized, how government is conducted, laws, how people live. A lot of it has progressed in very good ways. And a lot of the controls have made things better. I just don't want to see in another 5 generations so many controls that my great-great-great-grandchildren have no freedoms, that they have to ask government for permissions to have a tiny patch of a vegetable garden, have a hunting rifle, a shotgun. And I see where things like I-1639 becoming law is chipping away at our individual freedoms little by little until we will have to ask for, even on our own property, if we can even have our own property by then, that we will have to ask permission for even those small things. And that's why we're asking for ordinances like this to protect our freedoms that are supposed to be protected in our Second Amendment, in our U.S. Constitution, and in our state's Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hildebrandt. Anybody else want to address the commission? Go ahead, sir.
Doug Carmen, Lacey, Washington. I didn't think I was going to speak today, but after hearing all of this testimony, I figured I better stand up and say something. Today is February 19, 2019. Quite different from 1776. 1776, they had single-shot muskets. Today, they have assault rifles, M60 machine guns, you name it. There is absolutely no reason why someone has to own automatic weapons or has to own an M60 machine gun or assault weapons. For someone to imply that me as a citizen needs to own these kinds of weapons in order to protect myself from the government is very offensive to me. My job is to vote, my job is to get active, my job is to participate to make change in my government, not to use a weapon to do that. And that's what's been implied, excuse me, this morning or this afternoon, and I'm definitely against that. We do need to control these weapons. There's no reason for anybody to have an assault weapon. You can hunt, you can do all kinds of things with standard weapons, and to have a background check, you bet I want somebody to have a background check. I want someone to have a weapon that they can be trusted with, that they have experience at firing and safety and keep it secure so our children don't steal it, don't borrow it, and don't hurt somebody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. And I see another hand. Come on up, sir.
David Fox, live over in Bonnie Lake, Washington. First off, the gentleman that just spoke, nobody can own a machine gun in Washington State. They are totally illegal. They're not allowed whatsoever. Semi-automatic is all you can own, and that is one bullet per pull of the trigger, and that is all that is allowed. I-1639 is totally unconstitutional. Bob Ferguson is acting like a tyrant. And what they have done to gun owners is ridiculous. They've revoked our ability to carry insurance. All the owners that have insurance, like me, that carry on a daily basis, we had coverages up to $2 million. And they revoked our ability to have insurance by attacking the insurance companies, so that now if we get involved in a shooting, we have no coverage now. And that's ridiculous. For them to do something like that is acting tyrannical. And we're going after Bob Ferguson and anybody else that stands in the way of the Constitution of this land. We will come after you. Guaranteed. If you don't uphold your oath, we will be after you, because that's the law of the land, and we're not going to tolerate tyrannical government. That's the bottom line. We, the people, have had enough, and that's all we have to say.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am?
My name is Cindy Burwell.
Can you get the microphone right in front of you there? Thank you.
My name is Cindy Burwell, and I live in Ashford, Washington. I was also in the military. I don't agree with this I-639. I am a woman. I am vulnerable. I travel to Eastern Washington to see my mom alone, and I've had my car break down with my 2 children. I now carry a pistol with me when I travel because anything can happen, and I want to be able to protect myself and my property and my grandchildren and my children or anyone who's in my car. And, you know, yes, women and men are equal intellectually, but physically, men are stronger. And if I don't have that something that could protect me, I'm going to end up a statistic. I'm going to end up a murdered woman tossed on the side of the road. That's not right. I know how to use a weapon. I'm a legal weapon owner. I passed a background check. I was in the military. Why should I be penalized for criminals out there who obtain them illegally and use them on innocent people? I live in the sticks. The police don't respond lickety-split. It could be 2 hours before they make it to my house. I need protection. Someone breaks into my home, I'm dead. They can take whatever they want, and I'm not going to depend on the dog to protect me. So by doing this, you take away the right of every woman to protect her life. And all these women out here that I watch these shows, they'd be living today if they had a weapon to protect their families and their home and themselves. Please, don't take away a woman's right to not be a victim.
Thank you, Ms. Burwell.
Thank you for your
Anybody
service.
else? Yes, come on up.
Ron Wilcox out of Tacoma.
I'm sorry, your name?
Ron Wilcox.
Ron, thank you.
I just wanted to make a point, as far as the 1639 stuff being passed and, this ordinance, just recently, what was it, last week, there was the shooting thing in Chicago. And Chicago's supposed to be the tightest gun laws right now. Throwing another gun law onto us is not helping us in any way. It's just helping the criminals. Basically, you're taking, guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. We can't protect ourselves, and it's just helping the criminals commit more crimes. You go and put a gun-free zone sign on a building. That doesn't apply to a criminal, but it applies to us because we're law-abiding citizens. So, I mean, to sit here and continue to tack gun laws onto law-abiding citizens and restrict us from trying to protect ourselves is doing nothing for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Oh, yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Cassidy. I live in Tacoma, Washington. I grew up here in Thurston County all my life, and I can trace my family lineage here in this country over 300 years before we were even a country. So I'm very proud of what we have here, and the fact that my family, for many generations, decided they would pay the ultimate sacrifice for these freedoms, for what we have here. And I'm asking you guys from the bottom of my heart to please take, these, our freedoms into consideration and the implications that may happen in future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And anybody else? Oh, we got two more, okay.
My name's Jonathan Anson. I live in Olympia. I just have something real quick to say. Our inalienable rights, our right to bear arms, they're not subject to feel-good legislation that does nothing whatsoever to protect the citizens. If society, this is a quote from Chris Ann Hall, if society is honest and historically accurate, the only question that has any relevance to the gun control debate is, do you trust those in government now and forever in the future to not take your life, liberty, or property through the use of government force? If the answer to that question is no, then the debate on gun control is over. These laws are not laws that we should be enforcing. We should be correcting the laws that are currently not being fixed. The National Instant Background Check System is not being used by the state or the federal government in the way that it was supposed to. The Texas shooting, where this former soldier went in and shot the people in the church, he should have been on that list, and he wasn't. He went through all the background checks, and he still passed. When they fix the laws, then maybe we can have a talk about it, if it's not working, what we do next. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's have one other hand.
Hi, my name is Betty. I'm from Olympia, Washington.
I'm sorry, Betty, what was your last name?
Keller Zal.
Okay.
I wasn't planning on speaking either, but just hearing some stuff is frustrating. Anyways, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. We have the Constitution written out for us so that we have the law of the land saying what we obeyed by. So, but I feel everything is just being chipped away, and I'm afraid for my kids, for the future. I know it's just Olympia, Washington that we're doing this at. I hope we can keep the sanctity of our Constitution here. What are you doing? Where could I move to if we become a tyrannical government, which I feel we kind of are, but we're getting there slowly. Where to move to? I thought United States was the free country, the constitutional country, but I'm just, it's getting kind of scary. All right, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? All right, thank you very much. That closes public comment, and we're moving on with the agenda at this point. This takes us to number 2 on the agenda, the county manager's update.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Can you hear me back there very well? Can you hear me okay? So I'd like to follow up to the public testimony that you received on February 5th. And you received public testimony for Mr. Scott Bannister, I think he's here, and also for Mr. Micah Anderson. And Mr. Bannister introduced you, presented to you with a, I think he's represented the Washington 3% group. And he submitted a proposed resolution labeled Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance for you to consider adopting. This morning you had a conversation related to this particular request and decided not to take any action related to this particular request. And that's how I'd like to respond to that. Also, you received public testimony on February 5th from Mr. Robert Green, and he was representing the PTO for LP Brown Elementary. And he was making a reference, presented to you with a letter, stating of a property that has nuisance next to the school and requesting the county to participate with the school to take over this parcel and make it into a parking lot. Unfortunately, this is a private property, and the county cannot just go in and take this property. However, we're going to be working through the code violation process, code enforcement, and see all the different steps that we need to take to make sure this particular meets the code and meets the intent of the county code. Also, on February the 5th, you had a resolution related to the African American month, that will be February, where you presented this resolution to Mr. Alonso Chala, and he is the CEO of Alafia. That's a company located in Tumwater. He was very gracious in receiving the proclamation from Thurston County, and as a result of that, he proceeded to handing you, as well as some of your staff, including myself, baskets, gift baskets related to his products that he offers and sells. However, we as a county government and you as elected officials, you cannot receive any gifts of this particular matter. So we truly appreciate Mr. T'Challa coming over and give those gifts of appreciation. And we will be donating those gifts to two local nonprofits for their upcoming fundraising events. So that's how we're going to be addressing that. So that's all I have for you in terms of the report.
Right. Thank you, sir. Anything for the county manager?
I guess I would. Nope. I would ask the county manager, on a like property like the one the PTA brought to our attention, how long did the county work on that?
So
you might refer to that property. I don't. Kaiser Road, maybe?
I believe you're talking about the property that we dealt with almost 20 years. It was similar circumstances. It was a nuisance property. There was a lot of garbage and disposal of across the property, which started affecting the neighbors. Unfortunately, the county cannot just go in and take over that property, but it took 20 years until we can actually clean that property, and also actually right now that property is under a different property owner. There is in the plans of remodeling or redeveloping. So it is a complicated issue. We have a county code in place. And we're in this particular request from the LP Brown PTO, we're planning to take the necessary steps just to make sure that this property meets the intent of the code. Staff is going to come back with you with a formal briefing particular to this request, where they outline step by step what is it that we need to take to address those issues.
We're also working on a policy that will be less than 20 years in duration.
That is,
To
yes,
resolve these
that will
types of
be the
issues.
objective. We'll develop a policy in which it doesn't take us that long to address those, what we call the nuisance properties here in the county, because it's not just this one, it's many.
Okay.
There are many.
All right, thank you. Now we're moving into item number 3 on the agenda, the consent items. We have consent items A through J, and I would entertain a motion.
Yes. I would move to approve consent items A through J.
Second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Item number 4, department items. We're at the treasurer now, and we have the treasurer here, Jeff Gadman. Come on up, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for
You're welcome.
listening to me today. Jeff Gadman, Thurston County Treasurer. What I am bringing before you is a request for approval to purchase some investment tracking software. The current software that we use was written in Excel, and our investment activity and the size of our investment portfolio has gotten large enough now that we are stretching the limits of what we can get out of that Excel spreadsheet, although it has worked well up to this point. What we're requesting is a purchase of a software program called SimPro. This is the industry standard for investment management, investment portfolio management. It is used by most of the county treasurers in the state that have pooled investments like we do. Talking to treasurers that have tried other software, it just doesn't measure up. This software is going to be purchased on the state master contract number 06016. The cost of the initial purchase is $57,989.25 with an annual maintenance of $7,600. I do want to assure you that there is no general fund money involved in this purchase. This is all the investment administration account. The last concern that the public should have is by using this software, there is absolutely no danger of this software being the cause of investment losses. So the investments are safe. One more thing, the ITC subcommittee reviewed and approved this purchase on February 1st.
Any questions?
No, sir.
From the treasurer? Questions? No. Okay, is there a motion?
I would move to approve the purchase of SimPro investment software in the amount of $57,989.25, utilizing Washington State Master Contract number 06016.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Number 5, thank you, treasurer.
Thank you very much.
Number 5, Public Works, right off the uncollectible Public Works Department. Karen. Hi, Karen Weiss.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Karen Weiss. I'm the Senior Management Analyst representing the Financial and Asset Management Division of Public Works. In accordance with Policy 3055, which is the write-offs of accounts receivable, uncollectible accounts receivable, I have submitted a list of accounts receivable deemed uncollectible to the board. It totals $76,921.11, and with a request to authorize authorization to write that total off. The vast majority of this list is for solid waste commercial accounts. For services provided in 2012 and prior. Some of them date back through 2002. This includes also one small water and sewer utility account. And Public Works has done a comprehensive evaluation of our past due accounts, and this is an attempt to more properly reflect our accounts, our anticipated revenue. and is a cleanup of our accounts receivable balances. These were all submitted to a collection agencies, and the collection efforts on these particular accounts have failed, unfortunately. It's important to keep in mind these do not go away. The liabilities are still on the customer's credit account, but active collection efforts have ceased. It's no longer legal to continue collection efforts, and so the likelihood of collection is low at this point. I don't want to minimize the importance of these dollars, but to give a little perspective, for the solid waste division, the proposed write-off amounts for about 5% of our year-end annual or year-end accounts receivable balance, and less than 1% of our entire solid waste annual receipts, keeping in mind that these services are from 2012 and prior. This accounts for about 92% of our aged accounts receivable 90 days or more. The remaining 8% are currently in active collections, and we will be evaluating those on an annual basis to determine the collectability of those. In the cases of our water and sewer utilities, we are generally able to collect those balances through a lien placement placement process on the property. We were unable to do so in this particular instance. And so moving forward, Public Works does have a process in place to annually review the accounts receivable and bring them to the board on an annual basis for consideration.
Any questions, Ty?
No.
Go ahead, Gary.
Karen, I'd just like to, for the viewing audience, I guess, clarify the monetary amount you referred to and then compared to what we're doing here. That was an annual figure versus what we've got here is 7 years.
Correct.
Worth the buildup, right?
This is a backlog from 2002 to 2012.
So, I mean, it's really, you know,
It's
way less than
insignificant.
1% even.
Correct. It's
of what we're
insignificant
talking
in terms of how much we bring into the solid waste division. So
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to clarify that for the
I mean, I would say we do not have a collection issue in terms of how much we're dealing with on an ongoing annual basis. But at the same time, I don't want to minimize the fact that we are asking for a write-off of a
But you have
significant
done all
amount.
your due diligence in making the attempt for the taxpayers.
We absolutely have.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Is there a motion?
I would move to authorize the Public Works Department to write off uncollectible solid waste and sewer and water utilities accounts receivable in the amount of $76,921.11.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. 5B, ordinance amending Thurston County Code. Mr. Tim Wilson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
I'm Tim Wilson, Water Resources Division Manager for Public Works. And I'm here today to ask you to consider an amendment to Section 1604-110 of Thurston County Code relating to boating speed limits on Lake St. Clair. Thurston County Code, Chapter 1604 provides regulation and restriction on the use of county waters. Public Works staff has recommended an amendment to Section 1604-110 of Thurston County Code, raising the lake water level elevation boating restriction threshold from 69.5 feet above sea level to 69.9 feet above sea level. The amendment would allow for increased recreation opportunity on Lake St. Clair and comes at the request of members of the public. This recommendation follows a public hearing that the board held on February 5th. And with that, staff is recommending that the Board of Thurston County Commissioners move to approve an ordinance amending Section 1604-110 of the Thurston County Code relating to boating speed limits on Lake St. Clair.
All right, questions, comments?
No, sir.
David?
Comment, maybe?
Yeah, certainly.
We went through this carefully, and I support it. We heard a lot of compelling testimony from a whole bunch of citizens at our public hearing. We also had some written comments that I took very carefully under consideration. There were three aspects of this that kind of concerned me, and I just wanted to lay them out because I think there are things that we're going to be looking at as we go forward. There was a deep history to this issue, and a compromise had been worked out several years ago. And it always troubles me when something that sort of has a process and results in a compromise and gets reopened. The counter argument to that is that conditions are changing there, and the lake level is rising, and it's really creating a different set of conditions than I think were originally considered at that time. So I set that aside. The second issue is the size of the lake. The piece of the lake, as I understand, it's the smallest lake on which these kind of speeds are permitted. And if you take the piece of the lake on which these speeds are permitted, it's quite smaller than 3 other lakes, substantially smaller than 3 other lakes where that kind of speed is not permitted. And we're always talking about consistent policy and being consistent across the board. And I think that this is showing me an inconsistency that may need to be addressed. And then the third thing was there was pretty consistent testimony from both sides that the wake boats which are structured differently and create a much bigger wave, have a bigger impact, and especially in a relatively smaller body of water like this one, I think the impact becomes even more disproportionate. So that's another thing that we agreed in our discussion to sort of look at policy down the road potentially. So I just wanted the public to be aware that there were a number of considerations that I carefully weighed, but ultimately without this change, there's basically no access to that recreational activity that folks have been sort of dependent upon or relying upon. So based on the overall testimony, I'm going to support this. For the overall input.
Go ahead.
I guess just a follow-up statement, maybe for the viewing public in the audience, is this was first brought to my attention about 2 years ago by Mr. May and some of the other longtime lake residents. And here we are 2 years later amending an ordinance. So we talked about 20 years. We had a problem that we fixed earlier today. I'd just like to have folks know that government does not move very fast. And this is an example of it, although 2 years isn't too bad. So I'm prepared to make a motion.
This was a tough one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I would move to approve an ordinance amending section 1604.110 of the Thurston County Code relating to boating speed limits on Lake St. Clair as referred to by Mr. Wilson.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Item number 6 in the agenda is Public Health and Social Services. Carrie Hennon talking about the Thurston Mason BHO TST funds. You'll explain TST. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Carrie Hennon. I'm with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. I'm the program manager for the treatment sales tax. As you know, TST is a 0.1% sales tax collected countywide. It funds mental health and substance use treatments and related supportive services. So I am here to ask your approval of an interlocal agreement with the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization for about $2.1 million. That funds 11 different programs serving both adults and youth. About a little over 60% of that goes to youth services, a little under 40% goes to adult programming. All of these programs were discussed, vetted through the budget process that the TST Advisory Committee and the Board of County Commissioners just went through in late 2018, and this agreement is just to implement those agreements.
Any questions, comments?
I do not.
All right, is there a motion?
And I guess the reason I don't is because we went over this quite extensively in a work session earlier today. I'd just like the public to know that. Okay. I would move to approve an interlocal agreement between Thurston County and the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization for a total of $2,174,057 in treatment sales tax funds for the period of January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, and authorize the Director of Public Health and Social Services to sign the agreement and any amendments that do not change the approved dollar amount or duration by more than 5%.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Carrie. 6B, we're still in Public Health and Social Services, is an RFP. This is Gary here, or Tom. Come on, Tom. Request for proposal.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tom Webster, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. I am not Gary Aiden. We're here at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services is soliciting project proposals for funding from a variety of sources. So I'll read these sources and the estimated dollar amounts. The Federal Home Investment Partnership Act for approximately $711,000. The Affordable Housing Fund, also known as 2060, for $250,000. The Homeless Housing Fund, also known as 2163, for $2.2 million. The State Consolidated Homeless Grant Fund for $650,000. The State Housing and Essential Needs Fund for $1.6 million. And the Community Investment Partnership for approximately $200,000. These applications will be reviewed by the Community Investment Partnership prior to presentation to the Board of County Commissioners in June. The RFP will also solicit applications for the Veterans Assistance Fund for approximately $75,000 and the Treatment Sales Tax Fund for $500,000, and those are two-year contracts for the TST. Those applications will be reviewed by the Veterans Advisory Board and the TST Review Panel prior to presentation to the Board of County Commissioners. The total available funding is approximately $6,186,000. Application materials will be available beginning on February 25th, and applications must be received by the county no later than noon on Friday, April 5th. A bidders conference will be held on February 27th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Public Health and Social Services Department. And application materials will be available on the Thurston County Public Health and Social Services website. And this funding will support the County Strategic Plan Initiative 3, collaboration with community partners to reduce homelessness and implement Thurston Thrives housing strategies.
Any questions or comments?
Tom, when you went through the list of funds, what was the first one?
It's the Federal Home Investment Partnership Act, commonly referred to as the HOME program.
That was $711,000.
Yes,
Okay.
estimated once we get our final federal budget numbers.
Any other questions? Gary?
No, sir.
The bidders conference coming up in a few months, how will that be advertised?
So we will put out, that will be on our website. We also have a mailing list of folks who have applied in the past that we send out an email announcement to. That will include the opening of the request for proposal as well as information on the bidders conference.
All right, great. Thank you, Tom. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the 2019 request for proposals for the Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Department.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
And item C is TST Advisory Committee appointments. Carrie? Come on back.
I'm back. Carrie Hennon, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. Treatment Sales Tax has a volunteer advisory committee that makes non-binding recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners about the use of TST funds and also works with programs receiving funding around data, program improvement, et cetera. That committee has staggered terms, so there's always somebody rotating off, meaning just about every year we need a couple of new members. So in late 2018, early 2019, we did a recruitment process, solicited applications, and got some great interest from people with lots of great background in areas relevant to TST. And so I am here to ask for you to appoint 2 members to the committee, which will replace 2 members who are going off the committee in March. And the discussion this morning was to appoint Shanita Jackson and Wendy Tanner beginning this March for 3-year terms ending in 2022.
Questions, comments?
There wasn't a reappointment as part of this, too?
Just about a clarification. Usually this goes in the consent agenda. The reappointment was in the consent
Oh,
agenda.
it's already in there?
Yes,
I missed
you
it.
did
Okay.
approve, and the reason that you have this as a department item, because the discussion this morning was a different views from the different commissioners. So this will give you an opportunity to exercise your perspective on this appointment.
Got it. Thank you.
He always has an answer.
Yep, there was just so people know, there was a revision of the agenda since this morning, so I had to
Sorry.
race in here 2 minutes before the meeting.
Anything further?
No.
Good
Go ahead.
catch.
And again, an opportunity for the public to realize that we do kick these around pretty good before we come to the public meeting. And we do that in a work session. For any of you that might be interested to view that, I believe it's live streamed.
Yep.
And you can find that on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube channel.
YouTube
County
channel.
Zoning, yeah.
Okay. And I would like to clarify before we vote that that concern that was mentioned earlier by the county manager was that I felt that anytime we can, we should always have a businessman on any of our citizen advisory panels.
Or businesswoman?
Or businesswoman.
Okay. Business person.
And in this particular case, we're only making these two appointments now, but there are additional appointments to come after we revise the ordinance that oversees the TST, if that is a correct statement. And that'll
yeah.
be about 2 to 3 months before we get that done.
Thank you, Commissioner. As part of your discussion this morning was to go ahead and proceed with those appointments, including the reappointment that was part of the consent agenda. You also directed staff to go ahead and start working on contemplating changing the county code. The change will be to increase the membership of this particular committee to up to 9.
Yes.
And changing the code requires a public hearing, and that takes some time, perhaps 2-3 months, and that is why you like to take these appointments right now. And depending how the code amendment goes, I don't want to say that you will approve those. Depending on the public testimony, then you will have the options to appoint additional individuals.
And I guess I'll just carry on from there. The reason that I felt that it was important to have that, a different voice on there, is going to be addressed should we, has the chance of being addressed, should we approve this upcoming ordinance. And so I didn't feel it was fair to a citizen that was willing to put their name forward and to have a commissioner vote against them, because I don't have anything against the citizens that have applied. I want them to feel they have the support of the county board as they move forward in making some of these very important decisions. So because of that, and farther down the road, there will be additional appointments, and I'll bring my concern at that point in time. So because of that, I just wanted to affirm that I would be voting in the affirmative.
Okay.
When the time comes.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right. Motion time.
Okay. I would move to appoint, help me with this name.
Chinita?
Chinita Jackson and Wendy Tanner to the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee for terms beginning March 25th, 2019 and ending March 24th, 2022.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
And now we move on to commissioners' reports and county manager's report. We were supposed to have at 3:15. I'm sorry, 3.
May I suggest you recess the board
Yeah, let's do
county
that.
commissioners and move into the and move into the public hearing, and then you reconvene to finish your board
We'll
of
do
county
that.
commissioners.
The Board of County Commissioner meeting is now recessed, and we're going to move right into the public hearing that's been publicized. And this public hearing, let me find this here.
Excuse me, no, there is no other opportunity for public testimony, no.
I want verification.
So you're gonna have to wait till after the
No,
public
yeah.
hearing? Because we have business meeting we have to attend to legally. Yeah, we'll engage then later, but thank you. So this public hearing is to receive testimony on the telecommunications franchise agreement with Consolidated Communications of Washington, LLC, formerly known as Wycom Networks, Inc. The purpose of the public hearing is to take public testimony on the application of Consolidated Communications, oh, we just said that, operate and maintain fiber optic telecommunication lines and system facilities within Thurston County's rights of way for purpose of offering and providing network telephone services and telecommunication infrastructure services. This public hearing is in accordance with RCW 36.55.040. There is a sign-up sheet in the back of the room that people can add their name to if they wish to testify on this matter. And let's go ahead and do the, I'll read the rules of engagement for the public testimony after we hear from Michelle.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Michelle Underwood. I'm budget staff to the Board of County Commissioners. This public hearing is about a telecommunications franchise for Consolidated Communications, which was formerly known as Wycom. It is not related to cable services. It's about the phone lines. In 1956, Wycom received a 50-year telecommunications franchise agreement to operate in the public right-of-way. This expired in 2006. The company has continued to operate in the right-of-way and obtained appropriate permits for work done in the public right-of-way. In July 2018, we received an application for a new telecommunication franchise agreement. After some back and forth with the company, the county considers the application complete. According to RCW 36.55.040, the county is required to hold a public hearing on the franchise applications. In accordance with the statutes, public notice was published in the Daily Olympian on January 31st and February 6th of 2019. In addition, on January 30th, I physically went to the Yelm City Hall, Yelm Library, Olympia Library, Lacey Library, and the Rainier City Hall, and posted public notice on their respective common bulletin boards. Lastly, on February 1st, the notice was also posted on the windows of the Olympia City Hall and the Thurston County Courthouse to meet all the requirements. We have received no written or emailed comments. Any questions?
Any questions?
Could you tell us the date that this agreement was last signed with the Yelm Telephone Company?
July of 1956.
Just want to let the public know that we carry on pretty swiftly here. So now we're coming up for a renewal 50 years later.
Their franchise agreement was actually for 50 years, and I've not found anybody else who got a 50-year franchise agreement.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it could happen.
And no comments?
No comments.
Okay. So now we're at the point where there's a sign-in sheet in the back. Please add your name if you wish to testify. I see. And the timer, you'll have 3 minutes to testify. I'll be calling out names for oral testimony. When you hear your name, please come forward to testify. Time may not be given to another person. And I'm going to open the public hearing now. There we go. Michelle provided background. Thank you very kindly. I'm going to call you to the podium, and you have to give your, we request you give your name and address for the record. And there we go. Okay, no one has signed up. I know we do.
You're just teasing.
Yeah, I am. Steve Ott, please come forward. Thank you, sir, very much for being here.
Well, thank you for recognizing me.
Yes, sir.
I've been
Your name and where you live in the county.
Yes, my name is Stephen Odd, 16035 Vale Loop Road. And I have no objections to enhancement of the system. I just want it to be recognized that we've had extremely poor service since the entire time we've been signed up because of poor quality. And it took time to find out how this developed. And I find that I'm at the end of the line, and it seems the streaming service kind of dissipates. And so our service has traditionally been very poor. We've had the service been out numerous times to our property to check us, and they would say, well, they hook it up to a little gizmo meter there, and I said, well, you're getting an adequate stream here, but by golly, by the time evening comes, when other people tap into the system, we're getting, having to reboot our stuff all the time. Even last night, it was failed me several times. And it seems to be somewhat weather-related. So I hope the newer system would eliminate that. But being at the end of the line, I'm always the last one to get serviced, it seems like, for quality. And when I've had my own children come over and do the same similar type test, they say, well, no wonder your system isn't working. You're not getting enough digits or whatever coming through the system. So I would like there to be some kind of guarantee of service. We've complained over the years under the other name before we finally just gave up because no one's going to change anything. So that's my biggest concern, is just quality of service.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Not only the end of the line, but you were the last one for the day too, last speaker. The last speaker. So thank you for hanging out all day, or all afternoon for this.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's it. Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Michelle? Nope. Okay. Then is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Seeing no other
That's
persons
right.
wanting
Anyone
to
else?
testify.
I forgot.
Doesn't
Anybody else?
look like. I would move that we close this public hearing today, right now.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This public hearing is now closed. And what is the pleasure of the board?
Well, I am prepared to, because we do have some type of a deadline to make a motion on this and take action. But if there's any resistance to that, I could hold off until another time. But I believe that right now is as good as any.
Yeah, commissioners, you always have that option. Either you, depending on the public testimony you receive, you feel comfortable to go ahead and enact on the proposal, or if you'd like to have further discussion, we can organize a follow-up briefing for you.
Well, I think we're obligated to proceed on this particular issue. I'd like to hear from Michelle. Sure.
So this franchise agreement is regarding the phone service.
Yes.
So we've not had any public comment on the phone service. The streaming service, we have a separate franchise agreement with Wycom, and I will work with Mr. Odd on how to best address his, but that's separate. That's not the phone. So we've not had any comments on the phone service and that franchise application. We don't have an agreement ready as the company's attorneys are out of town. We have to come back to the board with an agreement, but I would ask that we be able to continue working the application.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay. Recognizing this is a phone issue and not a computer issue, I'll just put it like that, I guess. I would like to move to grant the application of Consolidated Communications, LLC, for a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain telecommunications facilities within Thurston County rights-of-way.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Are we under any time constraint? It's only been 63 years. If not, then are you ready? All in favor? So moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
Okay.
And is there a motion to close? It's already closed. Oh, so we're going to go right back into the...
Back into the Board of County
Okay,
Commissioners.
we're going right back into the BoCC. And now the Board of County Commissioners meeting is now reconvened. And we're on item number 7 in the agenda, which is the Commissioners and the County Manager report. Do you have anything to report?
Yes, I had 3 things I wanted to report on. One is I attended, along with the county manager, the Rochester Chamber of Commerce luncheon. And they have a new president, Tamara Marlowe, and their meeting was about the social service organizations that work in the Rochester community. Almost simultaneous to that, there was an Olympian editorial basically criticizing or showing one side of some challenges facing the Rochester community, mentioning only one group, the ROOF group, which is a great group. But as Mr. Chavez and I learned, ROOF is not the only organization that's working hard on the issues that are facing Rochester. And I know I'm going to miss some, but the Friends and Neighbors, Rochester Friends and Neighbors, the Clothing Closet, the Boys and Girls Club, the Lions Club, the Vets Cafe program, the REACH program, addressing hygiene needs, Enterprise for Equity. That was just a short list. We had a 60-minute meeting and 3 to 5 minutes per group, and there wasn't enough time in the 60 minutes. We had to extend the meeting by 20 minutes to get to all the different organizations that are working in Rochester. I wanted to bring this up because Ms. Marlowe, the new president of the chamber, said that she was interviewed, as was Diane Weaver, another prominent member of the community in Rochester, about the challenges in these issues, and none of the information that they provided was included. So I just wanted the public to know, who might have read that editorial, that there was nothing inaccurate necessarily in the editorial, but it really omitted a whole bunch of work that's being done by a whole bunch of organizations in Rochester. Secondly, I attended a mayor's forum as a guest, and because of weather issues, and it was the day snow started, most of the mayors could not attend, and it ended up being the mayor of town of Bucota, the mayor of Yelm, and the mayor of Rainier. And it was great, actually, that it worked out that way, because we had a really long discussion about South County issues. And I just wanted to communicate that all 3 mayors thanked the board for its selection of the Plum Street site because of access for South County residents. They felt that of the 3 locations that we had, the ability for South County residents to access Plum and Union was important to them. And they also had some other suggestions that I can communicate at our later meetings. And then finally, I sit on the board of Intercity Transit and LOT, our wastewater treatment. During this recent snowpocalypse, we had big challenges for both of these organizations that provide essential services to our community. I got firsthand reports at the last meetings for IT and for LOT about the work that was done by the employees. It was truly inspiring. We had patients, for example, dialysis patients that absolutely have to be transported every single day that use the dial-a-ride system, dial-a-lift. And that system was working on a constricted, basically they had to prioritize the most important citizens, but they were able to get those needs met. And it was pretty inspiring. And same with LOT. There were some electrical systems challenges. And if you lived in West Olympia, as I do, that the power blipped out about 20 different times. Every single time the power blipped out, there was a problem with the electronics communication in pump stations, and that sent workers out to 3 different locations over and over and over again to keep the system working, and it almost went off without a hitch. So I just wanted the public to communicate that we have some really amazing organizations and essential employees providing these key services, which I think we all would be. If they hadn't been doing that job, we would have all felt the impact of that after this recent storms. So that's it for me.
Good job. Commissioner Edwards?
Well, last week was kind of disruptive, let me just put it that way. But I did have an opportunity to attend a presentation today, and it was about the Olympia Burp Clinic, and I'm BUP
not burp?
Bupe.
What was
Olympia Bupe Clinic. And it is at the Capital Recovery Center, and it's opioid treatment. And it's something relatively new that's taking place in our community to address the opioid issue. And I would encourage anybody with any questions about that, maybe to get a hold of our Public Health Department and ask them about how to access the Bupe Clinic. And it's down on Cherry Street.
What's it stand for?
And it's all about, well, there
is it an acronym?
Yes, it's a short for a medical term that they use in treating opioid folks. And I ruined the acronym, but buprenorphine is about, is that it? Buprenorphine is apparently a pretty successful product to treat those individuals with that need some help with the opioid problem or other issues. It sounds like their heart is in the right place and they're headed in the right place. And should anybody need to know any more about it, I would encourage them to talk with Shelley, because I know she knows all about it. And I was just going to take this opportunity to say that I was down there for lunch today. It was a very good presentation, and those folks are trying to do the right thing. Anybody out there in the viewing audience that has friends, family, or concerns could certainly get a hold of our health department, and they could give them direction.
I'm good, thank you.
I'll just keep it short. There you go.
In the interest of time, I know you're going to mention it, County Manager, so I won't, that there's no BoCC meeting next Tuesday, February 25th, so I'll save that for you to mention. I testified at a Senate hearing on the telehealth mental health program for youth for Senator Randy Becker, her bill, that will be the first of its kind in the state if it passes, or in the country if it passes. No, I think it's just the state at this point, that provides mental health services to our youth in middle school and high school. They would have instant access to a psychiatrist, up to 2 telephone calls or even a Skype visit with a psychiatrist. And I toured the Family Education and Support Services, and the Executive Director, Shelley Wills, provided me a tour of the facility, which is large, over there by Evergreen Christian School on Black Lake Boulevard, and all of the work that they do, extensive work they do. And then yesterday, even though it was a holiday, the legislature was in, and it was a lobby day. And so I attended, not as a county commissioner, but as a dad, for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, talking about my son's severe PTSD. And even though it took him 3 years, took the VA 3 years to get him hooked up with services, it was a hellish long 3 years. But outside of the military, every other American with mental health issues, it takes an average of 8 to 10 years to hook up with services. And I can't imagine that kind of a wait for family. That's terrible for the individual. So that was very interesting. And we met in front of, or met with Senator Sam Hunt, and representatives from Lori Dolan and Beth Dolio's office. Her staff were there, and that was appreciated that they were there. And there was about 200 or so folks from NAMI that were there, and about 8 of us testified, or at least gave our 2-minute story to the representatives. That was wonderful. Now, since you mentioned, Commissioner Menser, about the snow, you have a former hat that you wore as Public Works Director. I need to ask you, if you know this off the top of your head, approximately the number of miles of primary roads that were plowed. How many miles we have in the county of primary roads?
I don't have that number on top of my head, but at the next Board of County Commissioners meeting, I will bring a report related to the response the Public Works did, the number of hours the staff worked, as you may recall, starting this past Friday, the Friday before, They went on 24-hour response. That will be 12-hour shifts. And I believe that considering the amount of snow Public Works have to deal with, I believe they did a fantastic response. As you mentioned, we have first priority to plow primary roads, then the secondary roads, and then we get into the local roads. Unfortunately, the amount of snow that we experienced, we needed to treat the primary roads multiple times. So getting to the secondary roads was an issue. Eventually, we got to them. But again, getting to the local roads, it was not until later in the week that we have the chance to get to those roads. So I will get the numbers, and I will ask staff from Public Works to come at the March 5th meeting. So they will give you a wide range of report as to the number of miles they would treat, how many tons of sand, how many gallons of de-icer they will use. All that will be part of that report. And also that will give you the opportunity to say thank you to the crews. And in fact, I believe on Thursday, Commissioner Hutchins and myself are going to the dispatch room at 7 in the morning just to give our appreciation to the crews. We're going to bring some donuts. But again, on March 5th, it will be a formal presentation outlining the report of their response.
And the reason I asked that, Romero, is because understanding it was such a heavy snow that, like you said, the primary roads are cleared, and as soon as they're done, they have to go back and replow them again because the snow was just so doggone heavy, and the primary roads are paramount for emergency services and normal traffic. And then secondary roads are secondary, and I had people complain that my cul-de-sac didn't get plowed.
You too?
Yeah, even to the point where someone was complaining, not only could I not get to my street, but my parking spot in front of my house didn't get plowed. And so, yes, people can be self-centered and selfish, but these people at Public Works worked their tails off, keeping the roads as clear as they can, the ones that really needed to be cleared. And just because of the amount of the snow, prevented local small streets from getting plowed. If you're heading down a small street, all the snow's going to go to the side, and you have to put it somewhere, and nobody wants it all in their yard. So there's a lot of logistics that are involved in that, and I was just amazed by that. But Public Works did a super job, and Puget Sound Energy did a brilliant job too.
Thank you.
We were only out for 5 hours personally, and I was okay with that. I was okay with that. Many people were out for days.
I will make sure if a PSC representative is here on the March 5th meeting for you to show your appreciation as well.
Yeah, they worked their tails off. Trees down everywhere, bringing down lines. Anyway, so that's the extent of my report. Now, I turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. And following up on Commissioner Hutchins' statement, next week's Board of County Commissioners, Tuesday, February 26th, is canceled. So the next meeting will be on March 5th. So let me walk you through your combined schedule. This combined schedule reflects that at least 2 commissioners will be present. You may have individual appointments on your individual calendars, and those will not be part of my report. Wednesday, February 20th, 9:30 in the morning tomorrow, you will have a briefing related to the Mullen Road project in terms of the communication plan the Public Works is trying to implement. At 12, you have a follow-up on the courthouse project, and that will go from 12 to 1:30 over lunch. Lunch will not be provided. It will be a brown bag lunch, by the way. 2 in the afternoon, you will have a briefing on the Habitat Conservation Plan, also known as the HCP. And at 6:15, I believe Commissioner Menser and Commissioner Hutchins will be attending this short course in local planning. It's going to be held here. But I believe that is in your individual calendars.
I'll be late, but I will be here after intercity transit.
What date is that, Ramiro?
That is tomorrow, February 20th,
Okay.
6:15 in the afternoon. And it's going to be located here on the room 152. Thursday, February 21st, Commissioner Menser and Commissioner Hutchins will review the agenda for the Thurston Mesa Behavioral Health Organization. In the reason Tuesday, February 26th Board of County Commissioners meeting is canceled is because Commissioner Menser and Commissioner Hutchins, along with many directors and and other representatives from the region, that will be Thurston County region, for a total of 60, will be attending an emergency management training on the Ocean Shores. That will be in the Shiloh Inns, located in Ocean Shores, here in Washington. And that training will begin early on Monday the 25th, so you will be traveling on Sunday, February 24th, and you will be returning back to the office on Thursday, February 28th. Moving on to March 1st, we tentatively hold a luncheon with the Squaxin Island Travel Council. That is yet to be confirmed, also the location, but we have it on the calendar just in case. The JPCAT meeting that it was scheduled for March 1st at 1:30 in the afternoon will be rescheduled for the end of the month. And that will take us to Monday, March 4th, nothing on your combined schedule, and then we'll reconvene back again here on Tuesday, March 5th. You will be reviewing the agenda for the Board of County Commissioners meeting on that day. And that will close my report. Do you have any questions?
On March 4th, I have 3 o'clock is the Thurston County Opioid Response Task Force. I know I'm not assigned to it, but I like to attend those. I don't know if that is
No,
important for
that
you
is
to-
not part of my report because no other commissioner attend that, so it's only you. So that's on your individual calendar. That is
Okay,
correct.
great.
All right, and that's it?
That's it.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Commissioner?
I would move to adjourn the Board of County Commissioners meeting of February 19th, 2019.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you.